My name is Benny Fulkerson, and I'm a Battalion Chief at the Oklahoma City Fire Department, and my title is Public Information Officer. My job as the Public Information Officer is a little different than that of a firefighter that you might ordinarily think of. Public Information Officer has a lot of different duties. One of the main ones being media relations. So we spend a lot of our day each day dealing with the local media, helping them with stories, conducting interviews, getting them the information that they need. We also spend a lot of time managing our social media accounts. We manage our fire department website. We collaborate with many external entities for a variety of projects that we're doing in the community. What we do is all about public relations and marketing, so it really varies. We have a lot of different things that we're involved with in our office, and it's actually a lot of fun. We're a pretty small office. It's just me, and I have an assistant public information officer, and I have a videographer, and we stay very busy. The good news is a typical workday for me is not typical. It varies quite a bit. In a perfect world, I would come in about 8 o'clock in the morning and I would review all the activity that we had overnight as far as the emergency calls. I would put out a news release. Then I would look for some content to post on social media for the day, and it would be very common at that point to receive interview requests from the local media about the news release that we put out, and then we would be responding to emergency calls as they come in. We would be attending different meetings. There's just a whole lot of different things that we do each and every day to make this office work. My dad and my grandpa were both retired firefighters. And when I was 19 years old, I had completed my first year of college, and I just wasn't sure which direction I wanted to go. And at that time, my dad and my grandpa both urged me to become a firefighter. They said it was a very noble and honorable profession. They said it was one that you were able to give back to your community, and they convinced me that it was something I wanted to try. And I started doing this when I was 19 years old, and nearly 30 years later, I'm almost done, but I'm still going for now. So to be an Oklahoma City firefighter, the only thing that's required is a high school diploma. Now, you do have to be between 18 and 43 years of age, and there are other requirements, but as far as the education level, high school education is all that's required to become a firefighter. Now, with that said, we do strongly encourage an education. In fact, most of our applicants that get hired today do have a college degree, or at least a lot of them do. And also keep in mind, if you become a firefighter at Oklahoma City, we'll pay for you to go obtain your college degree. And we'll also pay you extra incentive pay for having the degree once you've completed it. So we strongly encourage education here at the Oklahoma City Fire Department. I would say the most challenging aspect of not just my job, but for firefighters in general, is just the fact that we see a lot of things that are unpleasant. We go to help people on their very worst days, and unfortunately we see a lot of things in the course of our careers that we just can't unsee, if that makes sense. But on the flip side of that, we also get to help a lot of people on their very worst day and make those situations better, so that makes it worth it. The most enjoyable part of the job for me, besides the cliche answer of we get to help people, that's wonderful, but I really love the fact that it's not the same thing every day. I love that aspect of my job, that I may come in with a list of things that I really want to tackle today, but I may not get to any of those things at all today. It just depends on what types of emergency calls we have and what other types of requests come my way. So I really thrive in a very busy environment like this, and I enjoy that the most. If you're considering a career in the fire service, just know that it takes a servant's heart more than anything else. You have to have compassion for people. You have to have a strong desire to want to help people. And that's really the number one thing I would recommend to anyone looking at this. Also, make wise decisions now. The decisions that you're making now as a young person, as simple as the things that you decide to post on social media, can be a problem for you later in life when you're trying to obtain a job like this. You have to be very physically fit. If you're not into that, you need to start thinking about your physical fitness, because if you become an Oklahoma City firefighter, the first thing you'll do is go through a 16-week academy, and it's excruciating. It's very grueling. A lot of physical activity. It's very challenging mentally and physically and emotionally, and you'll need to be prepared for it. Aside from that, on a more practical note, I would recommend that if you want to do this, consider getting your EMT license. That's Emergency Medical Technician. And if you want to take it even a step further, get your paramedic license. We need paramedics very badly. In fact, a lot of people don't realize this. Approximately 70% of the calls that we respond to are medical calls. They're not fires. So having your paramedic license or even your EMT license is definitely helpful to get on here. So the good thing about working for a large fire department like the Oklahoma City Fire Department is we have other options of things you can do once you become a firefighter here. For instance, I worked at the fire stations when I started my career, but then I wanted to do something different, so I became a fire dispatcher, and I did that for a very long time. And then I went to the fire marshal's office, and I served as a public education instructor, so I would go out into the community and do fire and life safety presentations for different groups. From there, I went into emergency management for a short period of time, and then 7 years ago, I promoted into the position that I'm in now, which is the public information officer, and it's even completely different than all those other jobs. So when you start a career in the fire service, just know that there are other things that you can do besides just fighting fires. And you may decide that that's what you want to do your entire career, but just know there are other options too. When you speak of firefighting, the first thing that comes to mind is fire. And fire in and of itself is a chemical chain reaction. There's something in the fire service that you may have heard of. It's called the fire triangle. And what that means is if you think of a triangle and the three sides of that triangle, each side represents a component that is necessary for fire. You have to have heat, fuel, and oxygen for a fire to even be able to happen. And those three things have to come together within just the right proportions and with the perfect chemical chain reaction for a fire to actually begin and then to sustain itself. So with firefighting, the goal, once you understand the fire triangle, the goal when you're putting out a fire is to remove any one of those three elements, the heat, the fuel, or the oxygen. And if you do that, you will stop that chemical chain reaction and the fire will go out. So in our world, we're not able to put a compound back into a reactant state, but we can stop the chemical chain reaction by taking one of those three things away, and that's what makes the fire go out. So again, when we go back to that fire triangle, I can give you three examples of how it's handled differently in each of those situations. If you think about a house fire, for instance, the things that are inside of that house, the couch, the curtains, the chairs, the carpet, those are all the fuel, and it's burning, it's already on fire. Typically, when you see a house fire, you'll see firefighters go in with hoses, and those hoses then spray water onto the fire. Well, if you think about the fire triangle, the heat, the fuel, and the oxygen, which one of those things are we removing by putting cold water on a fire? We're removing the heat. You remove the heat with the water and the fire goes out. But that doesn't always work that way. Imagine if you have a skillet of bacon on your stove and you turn around for a second, you're not paying attention, and your skillet catches on fire in your pan. That grease fire is a totally different type of fuel than what was in that house fire. If you put water on that grease fire, it'll make the fire a lot worse, and it can actually hurt you. So what we tell people to do in that situation is to slide a lid over the skillet. And what does that remove? The heat, the oxygen, or the fuel? Well, that removes the oxygen. By sliding the lid over the top of the skillet, you've excluded the oxygen for being able to make contact with that fire, and the fire immediately goes out. A last example is if you have a gas pipeline. Imagine a gas pipe and there's fire venting out of the end of that pipe. You could put water on that, but that's not a safe thing to do. It might go out for a moment, but the gas is still escaping. The right way to handle a fire like that is to actually turn off the flow of gas to that pipe at a valve. and the fire will go out. So in that case, you removed the fuel from the fire triangle. So fighting a fire is actually a little more scientific than people realize. Firefighters certainly have a lot of different tactics and ways that they go about doing that. And enjoy your science classes, learn all you can about it, because there are so many occupations where science will actually make a huge difference in what you do. So now that we have learned a little bit about how we handle chemical reactions in the fire department, why do you think it would be important to be careful when participating in certain TikTok challenges?